Welcome back to Dead Money Trade. Today we're going to be looking at Bitcoin on some lower and higher time frames. I wanted to follow up with some topics I mentioned in the last video. First, let's look at the 4-hour shorter term time frame. We have dropped in price since the last video. We had a record monthly candle close, quarterly candle close, and I think weekly candle close. I'd have to check. We'll check right now. And then after those beautiful candle closes, we have corrected as low as 9%. Right now we're 8% off the recent highs. Now, every dip, if you're bullish on this, you probably want to see the dips as a buying opportunity. We are seeing higher lows so far. Now, we just put in this low today, so I don't know. We'll have to see if it holds. This wasn't just specific to Bitcoin. Futures were red last night. That's when the sell-off started. S&P 500 drops 1% today, and the VIX popped up 7%. So this isn't just specific to crypto. The overall market saw a correction, so that's good. That it's kind of in sympathy there. So on the shorter time frame, the last time, so I want to go over some fib retrace from recently. So when we hit 68K for this cycle, we retraced to 50%. Okay, when we hit new all-time highs, starting from the swing low back in February, we retraced again 50%. From the most recent swing low to swing high, we have retraced golden retrace 0.61%, or 60%. So, maybe this correction is over, this short-term correction. On higher time frames, it's bullish. So I really wouldn't worry too much about this short-term price action going into the halving. We normally do see some profit taking going into the halving, which is about 3 weeks away. Now, let's look at the RSI. So we saw some oversold levels today. Ideally, you want to see a higher low here. It hasn't really put a higher low on the RSI. The histogram is still negative on the 4-hour. On the daily, it looks like the histogram was about to turn green for this new quarter. That didn't happen. We got some more negative momentum, and because it is the end of the quarter, we're probably seeing quarterly rebalances from institutions. So some profit taking, maybe that's what's going on in the overall market. But I mean, you can see this uptrend is still intact, right? You're still seeing higher lows. I would not really start to worry unless we start dipping below 60, and more concerning like 59. But as long as we make a higher low above 51, the trend is bullish. The trend is bullish. So let's see if let's look at the weekly. Okay, so yes, our weekly close that happened Sunday night was the highest weekly close in the history of Bitcoin. Our RSI is looking like it wants to kind of reset. We had this reset in January from going oversold, coming down into the bullish control zone under 70. Looks like it might be doing the same thing again. The monthly, we had the highest monthly candle close in the history of Bitcoin just a couple days ago. The RSI is still in the overbought zone, super bullish zone. And the quarterly close, the 3-month close, was also the highest candle close in the history of Bitcoin. So trend is very bullish. on the higher term time frames, let's look at the monthly here. On the higher term, on monthly, uh, we normally see cycles peaking out when we had the cycle kind of topped out in 2017 when RSI was 96. The last cycle, 2021, RSI peaked out at 91. Now, actually, the interesting thing is it made a higher high when the RSI came back up to 73, but making higher highs on price action and lower lows on RSI is bearish divergence. So one way you can uh, maybe get a sneak peek if the trend is starting to uh, show bearish divergence, it's showing buyer exhaustion. Um, so going off that, we got as high as 76. When I say we, I'm just talking about Bitcoin or whatever chart we're looking at. We got as high as 76 on the RSI. I don't think the cycle's over. I don't think this is a cycle top. This might be a local top going into April, maybe May. I think by June we'd be making higher highs, new all-time highs. If we look kind of back on um, the 2016 halving cycle, it did do this where it kind of peaked out 79 RSI and then came back down to 71. Maybe we're getting something like that, kind of a slight reset. So some price targets to the upside I wanted to mention for Fibonacci. What could we maybe see as price targets looking up? Since uh, once we start getting above the previous all-time high, we start looking left, and it gets hard because you're in price discovery. You can't. It's hard to get price targets. So one way to do that is with Fibonacci retrace, and the 1.272 level puts Bitcoin at 84K. I think this would be our next target once we do break our recent all-time high of 73.8. Above that, the golden retrace 1.618 is around 100K. I think if price crossed 100K, that's when the mania would really start to kick in. The normies would really start to kick in. Looking at YouTube analytics, not mine, but other channels, and Google search trends, and crypto popularity in like app stores, I really don't think normies have jumped back in yet. I think people that are passionate and trust crypto are back in because it's clear that we are in a crypto bull market. But I don't think normies are back in for whatever reason. 70K is not sexy enough. I think we need to see 100K for the mania to really start happening. Above 1.618 is the 2 times extension, about 120K. And then above that, it gets kind of crazier. Maybe the 2.618 would be a target, 1.50 or 150K. And then something that would be insane would be like 240K. But when we talk about these price targets to the upside, we have to keep in mind that Bitcoin's market cap would have to see a multiple of what it is now. I mentioned this in my last video, and we can see here that Bitcoin's current market cap is about 1.3 trillion. All right. For it to double in value from 65K to, what is that, 140K, 130K, it would be 2.5 trillion. To be 2.5 trillion, it would have a greater market cap than Nvidia and similar market cap to Apple. Now, I think if we do see a doubling in Bitcoin, I assume that the stock market would also rally, so these market caps would probably get higher if these assets remain trending upwards, because we are in a bull market on the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq. Um, so just to keep in mind, so if you expect Bitcoin to double, you know, $2.5 trillion market cap, for it to triple, it would be a what, 3.5, 4 trillion dollar market cap. It would be a larger asset than these blue chip stocks. I think that may be possible this cycle, but we're not going to stay up there long if that happens. If we were to 3x in value, um, that's when the clock starts ticking where you want to take profits. And yeah, you'd be up here, maybe 200K. 200K would, I think, really be like, start selling. Start, start. I mean, you should be exiting your positions right on the way up, uh, taking profits along the way. But just some Fibonacci extension targets and market cap talk that I wanted to talk about. Okay, I think we covered everything. Um, let's see if we can take a quick look at the S&P 500. Yeah, delete my drawings here real quick. Where are we? What? Oh yeah, here we go. So S&P 500, this is on the monthly, has been on a tear. It really has been on a tear. And it can keep going on a tear. The monthly is not quite overbought yet. And just because we get overbought, you can see that it can stay overbought longer than you think. Now, it kind of has been going up in a straight line. Um, I think this is going to depend on rate cuts and the job market and overall sentiment. Now, in the short term, it does kind of seem like we are due for a correction. We haven't had any sort of move to the downside since October, November. Every single dip has been bought back up. Just like a really tight range here. So in the short term, what I would be doing is following the trend, following what everyone else is doing, which is buying these dips. I mean, every time it dips, you can see it gets bought back up, bought back up, bought back up. On the daily, you are seeing some bearish divergence where the RSI has been trending lower and lower and lower. You can see these peaks getting lower and lower. So it does show some buyer exhaustions on the daily, but until we really start to make a lower low, I would say around 5100, that's when maybe we might see some pronounced correction. But until then, the trend is your friend, and it just gets really hard to bet against the overall stock market. We do have earnings starting next week, so that could be a factor. We'll have to see how earnings go. But yeah, in the short term, if this gap doesn't get filled, maybe it gets filled, maybe we can't put in a higher high. That's really when you start thinking, okay, if we can't put in a higher high, and we've been putting in higher highs for 5 months now, might be seeing some downside protection. But I I think the uptrend will probably remain intact. Um, you know, you probably start pulling out the checkbook if you start seeing levels to 5,000 on the S&P. I really think it's going to be hard to go below 4,500. Like, it's just been so bullish. I mean, everything, all the news, doesn't matter if it's good or bad, it's bullish. But yeah, if in June Jerome Powell says no rate cuts, when I think the market's expecting rate cuts in June, yeah, I could get dicey. Um, Now for Bitcoin, short term, it's been correlating with the stock market. On the run up, it was kind of doing its own thing for a little bit here. Um, Maybe it breaks away if the market corrects. But yeah, if the market corrects, Bitcoin's going to follow for a little bit until it doesn't. So uh, those are my thoughts on Bitcoin, S&P 500. Let me know what you think. Do you agree? Disagree? Comment down below if there's any other tickers you don't want me to look at. Um, and yeah, best of luck. Stay safe and enjoy the ride. Take care.